Okay, please take it away, Neil and Francis.
Well, Francis will start, and then Neil will take over, and then Francis will do a bit, and then Neil will do a bit, hopefully. As you can see, we're from Hertfordshire Business School, and what we're aiming to do in this presentation is just kind of give an overview of an automated assessment tool that we've been developing at Hertfordshire Business School. And we call this our WATS system, which actually stands for Weekly Assessed Tutorial Sheets. It was developed by Neil back in 2006, and it's been evolving ever since, partly as a result of new assignment ideas, but also kind of in response to the challenges presented by the technological advances now available to our students, in particular, the issues surrounding AI. So if we go to the next slide, thank you, and rewind back to 2006, what were our learning and teaching aims back then? Well, pretty much exactly the same as they are now. We wanted to give our students a basic understanding of the mathematical techniques that underpin many of business decisions. So the topics we were addressing were things like basic stats, probability, forecasting, optimization, and things like that. But we also wanted our students to be confident in their use of spreadsheets, in particular Excel in our case, so that they could organise and visualise data, but also do calculations and some analysis. Now, clearly, we also wanted to be able to check students' knowledge and understanding of the work that we cover. But in common with many other institutions, we have to deal with large student cohorts, which, as you know, present significant challenges. So, bearing all this in mind, what were we looking for in our assignments? So, if we go to the next slide. Firstly, we wanted to try to make sure that our students remained motivated over the course of the module. So the original idea was to have relatively short weekly tasks that allowed ourselves and the students to check on their progress. But it also meant that we could identify and support weak students early on. Clearly, this required a quick marking turnaround, which is particularly challenging where you've got large student cohorts. And obviously, we wanted to make sure that our marking was accurate and impartial, but we also needed to give prompt feedback so that students could see where they'd made mistakes while the topic was still fresh in their minds. And in addition to all of this, whilst we do believe that genuine peer support can be really helpful, we clearly wanted to minimise the risk of copying. So, how did we achieve this? Well, moving on to the next slide. Taking this into account, Neil developed an automated assessment system known as WATS, Weekly Assessed Tutorial Sheets, and it's particularly suited for questions where students are required to do mathematical calculations. Each student is provided with an individualised Excel spreadsheet, and although the questions for each student are the same, they all have different data. So on the next slide, we'll see a couple of examples of type of questions that we used. In the first example, which is just a compound interest example, we allowed students to work out the answer either by entering an Excel formula into that yellow answer cell, or by carrying out the calculation on a calculator and just typing in the answer. In the second example, students were expected to use an Excel function to calculate, in this case, the correlation coefficient. But in both cases, at that point, the system just checked for numerical answers. Now, on the next slide, hopefully, we can look at the sort of topics that we can assess using this system, or the sort of topics we did assess using this system. They range from all sorts of things. They range from topics that are purely computational, like the basic stats, to those which could require students to analyse diagrams, such as project management. Okay, so that's what we want to achieve. So how did we go about it? And at this point, I'm going to hand you over to Neil, and he'll explain.
Okay, so from the technical side of things, how we'd set up the what set up this system is that we've got three basic Excel files required. There's a template. I'll show you an example in a minute about that, where we set up the basic question for that each student's going to have, but it'd be changed for each student. And then we've got a control book where we kind of sort of organize everything from which contains all list of the students and also the student uh, identification numbers. It's got the random numbers that we want to put in for each question sheet, and those random numbers are based on the student's number, so we can replicate the numbers at any given time. So, once we've generated a student's sheet, we know what question they've been asked, what numbers are in their questions. We also get the expected answers, of course, so that the system has something to compare the student submission against, and also how many marks we're allocating for each question. And then, as I'll explain in a moment, so the idea that the students, of course, will submit their answers and that they'll come into this control workbook. And then behind the scenes, we've got some VBA code that runs everything for us, and that's in the form of an add-in that we control. So here are three examples of a question sheet. The top one there is like the template there, and you can see in this particular question, for day 1, day 2, and day 3, we've got numbers, just fixed numbers. But day 4, we're going to have some other kind of number in bracket. The T in brackets there means it's going to be from column T of a spreadsheet in our control workbook. So that in column T will hold all the different numbers for the different students. So for student 1, it's got 406, and for student 2, it's got 404, and obviously for other students, it'll have a whole variety of different potential numbers as well. And so that's how we're generating for student 1, student 2, all the way through to student N. We've got a different number, or obviously some may be the same, but in general, they're going to be different from each other. When we're generating these random numbers, so they need to be generated in a way that we can recreate at any point in time, so that when we're working out what answers the students should be submitting, we know what numbers they've been given in the first place. So rather than just use the straightforward Excel random number generator, which will generate something different each time, there's a user-defined function, rn_between, that we've created. So we can say here, we want a random number between 404 and 409, for instance, in this case, which will give us 6 different potential numbers that we're going to allocate to the students. And that's a very simple way of doing it. We can get much more complicated ways of using if functions and so on to determine different sorts of information we want to give to students, including actually having different random numbers within sentences as well. It doesn't have to be in a separate cell necessarily. Now, when it comes to the answers, of course, we can just say, okay, well, it's relatively straightforward. We want, in this case, whatever is in column T divided by the day 1 figure multiplied by 100. So the answer for each student is able to be different in a way that we were able to calculate. And this, you can see a bit more of the worksheet here. These worksheets are all generated, so it's got a nice header stuff at the top there. You might notice it begins in cell E6 there rather than A1, and that's very deliberate. We have a random number of rows and columns added to the beginning of the sheets, so that if the formula is going to be used, then different students are going to have different formulae that they need to apply, rather than just one formula, because everyone's worksheet looks the same. Different students are going to have different worksheets with different sort of starting cells from that point of view. And you can see there's a whole range, there'll be a range of questions going off the bottom of the screen that you can see there, and they put their answers in the yellow boxes, essentially. So data is going to be different, the answers will be different, and we have the worksheet itself being locked, so that when we get to download the students' submitted Excel files, we know where to look for the answers. And if you give students a chance of adding in columns, deleting things, and what have you, then a number of them are going to inevitably do so. So we lock the structure of that front worksheet and give them some other space in the unrestricted workspace tab, separate worksheet where they can do their doodling or interim calculations or whatever they fancy, to be quite honest. We get the files out to students in whatever way is possible, and we've done different methods over the years depending on the facilities that we've had available at Hertfordshire. So it could be a Dropbox style system where you give the students a link and all the files are in there, and the students can then just go and find their own individualized file and download that. You could also have a situation where each student is emailed out a particular their own individual file, although we used to do that, but when we had to sort of roll back on that when certain students weren't able to find their things, it went into spam and stuff. So that making it accessible to them through a Dropbox style thing has turned out to be the best, most reliable way of doing things. What the students then do is they answer the questions, they download it, answer the questions in their own time, put it in the EOLA boxes, submit it via, we have Canvas, our system that we use, and then we download them all. Once the deadline's passed, we download all the student work, and the VBA code behind the scene in the control workbook opens up all the student workbooks, extracts all the answers and records those into the control workbook to make them ready for marking. What we can also do when we're comparing the student answer with what we expect the correct answer to be is we can have a tolerance in that. So if they haven't used the right number of decimal places or have done some rounding incorrectly, then they'll have a very close mark, and we can say, yes, we're going to give you some part marks perhaps for that. So that can be either, it's different number of decimal places, or we could have a particular tolerance on the actual numerical answer itself. There's various ways in which that's possible. We're able to also try and predict some ways in which students might get things wrong and give them some part credit for that. So an example there is if a situation might require a standard deviation to be used, some students are going to use the variance instead. But because we can predict that some students might do that, we can have, if you like, reserve answers ready and say, okay, if the student hasn't got the right answer, let's see if they've got one of these alternative wrong answers instead. And we can say, yes, well, you've got that wrong, but we're going to give you part marks, you almost got there. And we can also at that point give them feedback straight away saying you've used the variance instead of the standard deviation. So if students do things wrong in this kind of predictable way, then the system, we're able to give these part marks and also this feedback. There are some issues along the way. Students will inevitably sort of include units in the answers, which is not a bad thing in its own right, but we try and include this on the spreadsheet as well. So they may try and change the format of things, missing various percentage issues or currencies. All these things can be sort of wiped up as the students' answers are being extracted. Sometimes, of course, we'll have students submitting the incorrect file. It's not unusual for weak students, hopefully accidentally at least, submit a blank file. They've downloaded the original, gone off and done the work, saved that somewhere, and then they submit the blank file, which of course would be the same problem even if we weren't using a system like this. It does take a little time to resolve these and ask students to actually send the correct files and sort this out, but there is a certain amount of automation in the control workbook, the VBA, to try and overcome these things. Feedback to students can then be added to the actual student files that have been submitted. So, for instance, something like this, you say what answer that they've submitted and what my answer would be, whether we're giving them marks and we're saying, yes, in this case, your answer is just a little bit out, we're still giving you the marks. And we do that for all the questions and give them some feedback at the end there. So it enables very prompt return. The marking obviously doesn't take very long, even for hundreds of students, because we're doing this in an automated way. The time spent on this assessment has been setting it up in the first place. Once it's set up, then we can operate very quickly. We're able to develop the feedback on these common mistakes and give feedback on the overall statements as well. And that was where we were. And then came AI, and back to Frances for this.
Yeah, that's where we were. Everything was going really well. We liked the system, students liked the system, and then along comes AI to spoil the party. Well, the trouble is that, as you know, all students needed to do now was just enter the question spreadsheet into an AI chatbot, and it could calculate the answers without the students needing any knowledge or understanding of the topic that they were covering. AI can also provide detailed interim calculations and even completed Excel equations, and it's getting better at it. So at this point, we needed to reassess what we were doing. So we went back to re-examine what we wanted our students to do. So we go to the next slide. And you can see, to be honest, it's pretty much exactly the same as what we wanted back in 2006. We still want them to have a basic understanding of the principles involved in data analysis. We still want them to be able to look at a real life problem and identify the relevant tools to help them find a solution. Also, given that we believe that spreadsheets will be continued to use in the workplace for a while yet, we want the students to be able to use Excel effectively. But we're also happy for students to use online resources to help them address gaps in their knowledge, in much the same way as we'd have used the textbook in the day. We're also okay with genuine, and I mean genuine, peer support. So what could we do? We go to the next slide. And what we could have done is go back to in-class tests and either not use WATS or use the WATS system under controlled conditions. And that is, of course, still possible. Or we could also adapt our current WATS system. So looking at the next slide, as I said a second ago, we are happy for students to use online resources to address gaps in their knowledge, because after all, when they get to the workplace, they'll be able to access this type of resource. So we thought that as educators, it's actually part of our role to help students to be able to use these types of resources responsibly. So in the end, we decided to adapt our system. So the question is, how do we do this? Well, there are a number of different ways. If we go to the next slide, the first way that we developed, and this was a couple of years back now, so you can see that AI has moved on. The first way that we developed was to ask students to enter formulae or functions and include cell referencing into answer cells. So when it did the marking, the system now checked that not only the numerical answer was correct, but that a correct formula had been used. So in this example that I've done here, we're asking students to use a formula to produce a forecast. Now, unfortunately, it does appear that where the AR, this is an area where AR chatbots are improving. So we do need other measures to use alongside this. So in the next slide, we'll look at one of these measures that we use. We can add hidden rows, or indeed columns, it happens to be a row here, and genuine students won't include that extra hidden data in their calculations, whereas a chatbot will use those hidden values. If we move forward again, another example. We also find that students who use these AI chatbots tend to just upload an entire workbook. So if we enter some key data in picture format, like I've done here, the chatbot just doesn't accept it when it's in the format of the spreadsheet. Now, of course, the chatbot just alerts the students to the issue, but the student then needs to locate the required data and enter a screenshot. And to be honest, from experience, the type of student, of our students anyway, maybe yours are more diligent than ours, but the type of students that use these AI chatbots are the sort of students that wouldn't bother to go that far, and they would just leave that question. Okay, so if we move on to the next one. Next example, yeah. Now, of course, we can ask students to analyse data which is not accessible to chatbots. So, for example, here I asked students to analyse data from the Mintel website. And in this case, the chatbot came up with some answers, albeit incorrect, and the students just simply accepted them. So, you know, there was no problem with they just got the wrong answers. Okay, so if we move forward again, we've added some more features. There are times when we want to check skills such as data visualization. So, for example, we might want them to create and analyze charts and graphs. And for those types of assignments, we've been able to produce what I call a demi-WAT because I couldn't think of a better name, where part of the assignment is marked by hand. The first section is possibly using a WATS as is, so it's marked by computer, but the second part could be marked by hand, as I say. So in this example, I produced a network with randomly generated start and finish times. And the students were then required to use this data to produce Gantt charts and carry out some resource management. Now, this is hand marked, but to mark this section, I therefore had to develop a spreadsheet which automated the production of expected answers, which I could then compare manually with the student answers and use a marking grid to come up with a final mark. It's a bit longer, but it is nevertheless possible. Okay, so if we move on again, this is another example of the type of question we could produce. As with many other institutions, here at the Business School at Hertfordshire, we run a number of degree apprenticeship programmes, and our apprentices are required to apply their skills in the context of their own particular organisation. So another adaptation that we've introduced is to allow for the inclusion of data specific to individual apprentices or individual companies. So you can see that in this example, I've been asking students exactly the same forecasting question, but using data from their own area of work. So in this particular case, I happened to have a firefighter from Hertfordshire, so he was given a prediction of the number of firefighters in 2025. But in the same cohort, I had somebody from Morgan Lovell, and they're just looking at the number of employees in 2025. Okay, so that's if I look at my one final example. Next slide, thank you. As we've mentioned already, on the question and answer sheet, the white cells are long. So in the past, if students wanted to edit the tables, they'd have to copy them elsewhere into the unrestricted worksheet, for example, do the calculations, and then copy the answers back into the question and answer sheet original cells, which is frankly a bit of a faff. So what we've now developed is colour coding, where we unlock cells using colour coding to allow students to carry out interim calculations within question and answer sheets. So these are all examples of modifications that we've made over the years. And it's just still work in progress as we're just continuing to add more features. So I'll finish there, but I'll hand over now to Neil so he can finish us off completely, if you see what I mean.
And this is our final slide. Why did we offer to do this presentation? Well, because it's been successful. We've used it over many years, and we thought, well, let's other people know about this sort of thing they're doing. Maybe other people will be doing similar things already. Gives the opportunity to hear opinions and feedback from others. And if anyone would like to talk about possibly using our system or adapting our system, there's our email addresses at the bottom there, and we'd be very happy to hear from people. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Francis. I think virtual Talmo round of applause there as we see those drifting across the screen. And thank you, very much for kicking this off. We're a little tight for time today, so we might only have a chance for a couple of questions as here. So I'll just go straight into those if that's okay. But first is from Tony Mann saying, technical one, do you have any problems with VBA? And that's the fact that IT teams don't always allow macro-enabled worksheets on university systems. Is that an issue you've encountered?
It's up to a point, yes. We find that the default sometimes is, oh, we don't want that to work. And then it's a question of, I say, okay, talking to the IT team, and they're very happy to enable us to use that because they recognise that it's a tool that we're trying to use for decent purposes. Just to mention, the students' workbooks themselves don't have any VBA in themselves, so they don't have any issues from that point of view. It's only us lecturers who are setting the system up, and it's not been a problem to be able to use it in certain areas. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Neil. And looking at the thumb up that's just floated across my screen from Tony, I think that's answer's been well received. I'll take the next question from Ingo, and then we'll move on to our next talk. But Ingo's asked, when AI can solve the problems you provide, how do you convince students that Excel rather than AI itself is the appropriate tool to be used for such problems? It's a good question.
Frances, do you want to say anything about that?
It's a bit of a case of suck it and see at the moment. At the moment, we feel that in the workplace, people are still going to be using Excel for a few years yet, if not a lot. The answer is we don't know because, this is new ground for all of us. 2 years ago, we were not seeing people cheating with AI. Now we are. And it's a really steep learning curve at the moment. I was quite pleased though. The last set of assignments I had, I went back to old-fashioned cheating. I couldn't believe people were just copying and not using AI, so I was quite pleased. So it does seem that the system is working from that point of view. How we convince them that it's going to continue to be useful is a question that I'm not sure of the answer, if I'm entirely honest.
Yeah,
Sorry.
interesting phrase there, Francis, that I'm pleased to see going back to old forms of cheating. I think slightly paraphrased. Brilliant. Thank you both for kicking off this final Talmo of 2025. I think there's another question in there from Tim Lowe that if you get a chance to please do respond to there, because I think it's a really good one about the hidden rows. But again, another quick round of applause for Francis and Neil for getting us started here today.